Bruce Lee's last conversation with his son Brandon, the words he spoke that night became the most important lesson of Brandon's entire life. Hong Kong, July 18th, Wednesday evening. The sun is setting over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The air is thick with humidity. Summer in Hong Kong means heat that wraps around you like a blanket. Heavy, suffocating, impossible to escape. Bruce Lee sits on the back porch of his mansion in Kowloon Tong. Simple white shirt, black pants, barefoot, his legs stretched out in front of him, a cup of green tea cooling on the table beside him. He's tired, not just physically, deeply tired. The kind of exhaustion that comes from pushing yourself beyond every limit for years, from fighting a world that doesn't want to accept you, from carrying the weight of an entire culture's hopes on your shoulders. But tonight, he's not thinking about films, not thinking about Hollywood, not thinking about legacy or fame or the 1,000 obligations that consume his days. Tonight, he's just a father, watching the sunset, waiting for his son. Brandon walks out onto the porch. He's 8 years old, small for his age, thin, quiet, dark hair that falls into his eyes. He looks like his mother more than his father, but he moves like Bruce. That's unmistakable. Even at 8 years old, there's something in the way Brandon carries himself, an awareness, a presence, like he's always observing, always processing, always ready. Brandon sees his father and smiles, not the big performative smile kids give when they want attention, a quiet smile, the smile of someone who's genuinely happy to see the person they love most in the world. "Dad," Brandon says. "Come sit with me," Bruce says, pats the chair beside him. Brandon climbs up, sits cross-legged, looks at the sunset. They sit in silence for a few minutes. Not uncomfortable silence, the comfortable silence of two people who understand each other without needing words. Father and son, teacher and student, two souls connected by something deeper than blood. "Dad?" Brandon says after a while. "Yes? Are you the strongest man in the world?" Bruce looks at his son, really looks at him, sees the question behind the question. Brandon isn't asking about physical strength. He's asking something deeper. Something 8-year-olds sometimes ask when they're trying to understand the world, trying to understand their father, trying to understand themselves. Bruce could give the easy answer, "Yes, I'm the strongest. I can beat anyone." That would make Brandon feel safe, proud, protected. But Bruce doesn't give easy answers. Never has. Not to students, not to journalists, not to himself. Why would he give one to his son? Bruce takes a sip of his tea, thinks carefully. The way he thinks about everything, with respect for the question, with commitment to truth. "No," Bruce says finally. Brandon looks surprised. "But you can fight anyone. You're faster than anyone. Everyone says you're the strongest. Everyone is wrong, or they're measuring strength the wrong way." "What do you mean?" Bruce looks at the sunset. The colors shifting. Orange becoming red, becoming purple. Beautiful and temporary. Gone in minutes, like everything. "Tell me something, Brandon. When you were at school last week, remember the boy who pushed you?" Brandon nods, his jaw tightens slightly. The memory still bothers him. "What did you want to do?" "I wanted to punch him." "Did you?" "No. You told me not to fight unless I had no other choice." "And what did you do instead?" "I walked away. But it made me feel small." Bruce nods. "Yes, walking away when someone hurts you feels like weakness. It feels like you're losing. But Brandon, that moment when you walked away, that was the strongest thing you did all week." "That doesn't make sense, Dad." "It does. But it takes time to understand. Sit with me. Let me explain." Bruce shifts in his chair, turns slightly to face Brandon. The sunset paints them both in golden light. Father and son. One of the last evenings they'll share together. Neither of them knows it yet. "When I was young," Bruce begins, "I was angry. All the time. People looked at me and saw something small, something they could dismiss. Too Chinese, too thin, too short. They underestimated me constantly, and I was angry about it. So angry I wanted to prove every single person wrong. I wanted to fight everyone who looked at me like I was nothing. I wanted to show them, make them see. Did it work? Sometimes. In the short term, yes. I could beat people, show them I was stronger than they thought. But it never made the anger go away, it just made me angrier. Because I kept fighting to prove something, and the more I fought, the more I needed to prove it again. It was a cycle. Fight, win, feel strong. Then find the next person who underestimates you. Fight again. Win again. Never enough, never satisfied. Brandon listens intently. This is different from Bruce's normal teaching. This isn't martial arts philosophy. This is personal, raw, real. Real. So what changed? Brandon asks. I met your mother. Brandon smiles. He loves hearing about his parents together. The way Bruce's face changes when he talks about Linda. The hardness softens, the intensity relaxes, something opens up. Your mother looked at me and didn't see a fighter. Didn't see a martial artist. Didn't see someone who needed to prove himself. She saw a person. Just a person. Flawed, struggling, scared sometimes, but a person worth loving. Not because of what I could do, because of who I was. And that changed the anger? Not overnight, but it gave me a different way to think about strength. Before Linda, I thought strength meant being unbeatable, being the best, winning every fight. After Linda, I started understanding that real strength is something else entirely. What? Bruce looks at his son. Those young eyes, so open, so ready to absorb, so much like Linda's eyes, brown and warm and trusting. Real strength is choosing not to fight when fighting would be easy. Brandon thinks about this. His brow furrows, concentrating. The way Bruce's brow furrows when he's working through a problem. Like when I walked away from that boy? Exactly like that. That boy pushed you. You wanted to hit him back. You could have. I've been training you since you were 5. You know how to fight. You could have defended yourself easily, but you didn't. You chose the harder path. The path that felt like weakness but was actually strength. That's courage, Brandon, real courage. Not fighting when you can, choosing peace when war is easier. But Dad, what if someone really hurts me? What if walking away isn't an option? Bruce nods. This is the important question, the one that separates understanding from naivety. But what Bruce told Brandon next about strength and fear became the foundation of everything Brandon understood about life. Then you fight, Bruce says simply. You fight with everything you have, no hesitation, no mercy. You protect yourself. You protect the people you love. That's when fighting is necessary, when there's no other choice, when someone's life is in danger. In that moment, all the training matters, all the skill matters. Everything I've taught you comes into play. So fighting is sometimes okay. Fighting is sometimes necessary. There's a difference between okay and necessary. I don't like fighting. It's not enjoyable. It's not fun. It's violent and ugly and painful, but sometimes the world requires it. Sometimes the only way to protect someone is to fight. In those moments, you must be ready. You must be capable. You must not hesitate. How do I know the difference? How do I know when to walk away and when to fight? Bruce smiles. The question shows wisdom beyond Brandon's years. That's the hardest question anyone can ask, and there's no perfect answer. It depends on the situation, on the stakes, on what's at risk. But here's a way to think about it. If you can walk away without someone getting hurt, walk away. If someone will be harmed because you walked away, then you fight. Brandon nods slowly. Processing. Understanding. Dad? Yes? Are you afraid of anything? The question catches Bruce off guard. Not because it's unexpected. Because it's honest. Children ask honest questions. They haven't learned yet to be careful with their words, to protect people from truth. Brandon just asks what he wants to know. Bruce considers lying, telling Brandon that no, he's not afraid of anything. That would be comforting, reassuring. The image of the fearless father, the invincible protector. But Bruce promised himself long ago that he would never lie to his children, not about the important things. Yes, Bruce says, I'm afraid of things. Brandon's eyes widen. What are you afraid of? Failing you, failing your sister, failing your mother, being a father who doesn't give his children enough, being a husband who doesn't protect his family, being a person who doesn't live up to what he believes. Those things scare me more than any fight ever could. But you're not failing us, Dad. You're here, you're teaching me, I'm not here enough. Bruce interrupts gently. The films take me away. The training takes time. The fans, the interviews, the business. Your mother takes care of most of the day-to-day. She's the real strength in this family. I'm just the one who looks strong on screen. You are strong, Dad. Bruce looks at his son. Love so deep it hurts. The kind of love that makes everything else insignificant. Films don't matter. Fame doesn't matter. Legacy doesn't matter. This matters. This moment. This conversation. This boy looking at him with those trusting eyes. Brandon, listen to me carefully. What I'm about to tell you is the most important thing I will ever teach you. Not a martial arts technique, not a fighting principle. Life, real life. Brandon straightens, senses the weight of what's coming. Even at 8 years old, he can feel it. You will face fear your entire life, Bruce says. Every single day, in some form, you will be afraid of something. Afraid of failure, afraid of rejection, afraid of not being good enough, afraid of losing someone you love, afraid of dying, afraid of living. All of it. Every human being on earth experiences this. Even the strongest people, especially the strongest people, because they feel more, they care more, they have more to lose. The strongest people in the world are not the ones who feel no fear, they're the ones who feel the most fear and act anyway. Brandon absorbs this, his young mind working, connecting. So being brave isn't about not being scared? No. Bravery is being terrified and moving forward anyway. Bravery is feeling the fear completely, letting it wash through you, and then choosing to act despite it. Not because the fear disappears, it doesn't, because the thing you're fighting for matters more than the fear. What do I fight for? Bruce puts his hand on Brandon's shoulder, squeezes gently, firm, warm, present. You fight for the people you love. You fight for what you believe is right. You fight for the person you want to become. Those three things, they're bigger than fear, always, in any situation. If you can connect to one of those three things, fear becomes fuel instead of poison. It powers you instead of paralyzing you. How do I do that? Connect to them when I'm scared? Practice. Every day. Small moments. The boy at school who pushed you, you were scared. Not of him, of the conflict, of making things worse, of looking weak, but you connected to something bigger. Your father taught you not to fight unless necessary. You respected that teaching. You chose wisdom over reaction. That was you connecting to something bigger than fear. You did it without even knowing you were doing it. Brandon smiles. Pride, understanding, connection. The sunset has almost disappeared. The sky turning dark blue, stars appearing one by one, the city lights below beginning to glow, Hong Kong coming alive for the night. Dad? Yes? Will you always be here to teach me things? Bruce's heart breaks. Just a little. The crack that every parent feels when their child asks this question. The crack that reveals how precious this moment is, how temporary everything is, how the people we love won't always be there. Bruce doesn't answer immediately, takes a breath, steadies himself, because his answer matters. This answer will stay with Brandon forever, whether Bruce knows it or not. Brandon, I can't promise that, Bruce says honestly. Nobody can promise that. Life is unpredictable. Things happen that we can't control. But I can promise you this. Everything I've taught you stays with you. Even if I'm not here to remind you, the lessons live inside you now. They're part of who you are. They'll guide you when I can't. They'll protect you when I'm not there. That's how teaching works. I don't need to be in the room for my lessons to be in your life. Brandon doesn't fully understand what Bruce is saying. He's 8. He can't process the weight of those words, can't hear the goodbye hidden inside them, can't feel the premonition that sometimes visits parents in their quietest moments. But somewhere deep inside his young heart, those words land, settle, take root. I love you, Dad, Brandon says. Bruce pulls his son close, holds him, tight, like he's memorizing the feeling, the weight, the warmth, the smallness of this boy who will one day be a man. I love you too, Brandon, more than any fight I've ever won, more than any film I'll ever make, more than anything in this world. You and Shannon, you're my greatest achievement, my real legacy. Not the movies, not the martial arts. You. They sit together until the sky is completely dark, father and son, teacher and student, two souls sharing one of their last evenings together on Earth. Neither of them knows it. Both of them feel it. Linda calls from inside. Dinner is ready. Bruce stands, takes Brandon's hand. They walk inside together. Brandon's small hand in Bruce's larger one. Simple, natural, loving. 2 days later, Bruce Lee dies. Brandon doesn't fully understand death at 8 years old. Understands someone is gone. Someone who taught him things, someone who held him, someone who loved him. The concepts of permanence and loss are too big for a child. They come later, in pieces, over years, but the conversation on the porch stays. Every word, every pause, every look Bruce gave him. Brandon carries it like a treasure, doesn't fully understand it for years, but carries it. At 12 years old, Brandon starts training seriously, not because Bruce taught him, because the lessons Bruce planted that evening grow, blossom, demand attention. Brandon needs to move, to fight, to understand what his father understood, to connect with the man he lost through the art that man loved. At 16, Brandon gets bullied at school. A bigger kid, aggressive, mean, Brandon remembers the porch, remembers Bruce's words. If you can walk away without someone getting hurt, walk away. Brandon walks away. The bully laughs. Brandon feels small, feels weak, feels like he's failing his father. But that night, alone in his room, he remembers another part of the conversation. Real strength is choosing not to fight when fighting would be easy. He chose strength, even though it felt like weakness. Bruce would be proud. At 19, Brandon starts acting, following his father's path, not because of the fame, because of the storytelling. Because Bruce taught him that art matters, that expression matters, that showing the world who you are through performance is a form of truth-telling. Before his first major film role, Brandon stands alone in his trailer, nervous, terrified, his father's legacy hanging over him like a shadow, everyone comparing him to Bruce, expecting him to be Bruce, measuring him against an impossible standard. He closes his eyes, breathes, remembers the porch, remembers Bruce's voice. Bravery is being terrified and moving forward anyway. Brandon opens his eyes, walks onto set, begins. At 28 years old, Brandon Lee dies on the set of The Crow. A tragic accident, a prop gun that shouldn't have been loaded, a mistake that takes a life too young, too suddenly, too senselessly. The world mourns. Again, Bruce Lee's son, gone, like his father. Too soon, too young. The universe's cruelest joke. But Brandon's final film becomes his masterpiece. The Crow releases months after his death, becomes a cult classic. Brandon's performance is magnificent, haunting, beautiful. A swan song that captures everything he was, everything Bruce taught him. In the film, Brandon's character is resurrected, returns from death to complete unfinished business, to protect those he loves, to fight for justice, art imitating life in the most painful way possible. Linda watches the film alone. In a dark theater, empty except for her, tissues in her hand, tears falling. On screen, her son moves, fights, lives. For 2 hours, he's alive, moving like Bruce, fighting like Bruce, being like Bruce. The legacy flowing through generations, father to son, teacher to student, love to love. After the film ends, Linda sits in the darkness, processing, remembering. 2 conversations on 2 different porches. Bruce teaching Brandon. Bruce's lessons living inside Brandon. Brandon carrying them forward until Brandon couldn't carry them anymore. But the lessons survive. That's what Bruce promised. The lessons live inside you now. They're part of who you are. Even if I'm not here to remind you, they lived inside Brandon. Now they live inside everyone who watched Brandon perform, everyone who felt the truth in his acting, everyone who understood that Brandon was showing them something real, something taught by a father on a porch on a summer evening in Hong Kong. Shannon Lee grows up carrying both losses, father and brother. 2 men she loved, 2 men taken too soon, 2 men who taught her, through their absence, what presence means, what love means, what strength means. Shannon becomes the keeper of the legacy, manages Bruce's estate, protects his philosophy, ensures his teachings continue reaching new generations, not just through films, through understanding, through truth. In interviews, Shannon is asked about her father constantly, about Bruce Lee, the legend, the martial artist, the actor. But sometimes she talks about Bruce Lee, the father, the man on the porch, the man who sat with Brandon and taught him about fear and courage and love. My father's greatest lesson wasn't about martial arts, Shannon says. It was about being human, about feeling fear and moving forward anyway, about loving your children more than your legacy, about understanding that the most important thing you leave behind isn't fame or achievement. It's the values you plant in the people you love. Did Brandon understand that? Brandon understood everything our father taught him. Maybe not immediately, maybe not all at once, but over time those lessons grew inside him, shaped him, made him who he was. And when he was gone, those lessons didn't disappear. They became part of his legacy too. 2 generations of teachers, 2 generations of fathers who loved their children more than anything, 2 generations of men who chose courage over comfort. That's the Lee family legacy. Not martial arts, not films, love, courage, truth. Years pass. Decades. The Lee family legacy grows. Bruce's film still watched by millions. Brandon's performance in The Crow still celebrated. Shannon continuing the work. And somewhere, on a summer evening, a father sits with his young child on a porch, watching the sunset, teaching without knowing he's teaching, loving without knowing how precious these moments are, planting seeds that will grow long after he's gone. The cycle continues, as it always has, as it always will. Father to child, teacher to student, love to love. Bruce Lee sat on a porch in Hong Kong on July 18, 1973, taught his son the most important lesson of his life. 2 days later, Bruce was gone. But the lesson survived, lived inside Brandon, guided his life, shaped his art. And when Brandon was gone too, the lesson survived again, inside Shannon, inside the films, inside the millions of people who felt the truth Bruce planted on that porch. Being brave isn't about not being scared. Bravery is being terrified and moving forward anyway. Bruce taught that to Brandon. Brandon showed it to the world. The world carries it forward. That's legacy. Not in what you achieve, in what you teach, in what you plant, in the seeds that grow after you're gone. Bruce Lee's final lesson to his son was simple, profound, eternal. Fear is not the enemy. Fear is fuel. The question is never whether you'll be afraid. You will be, every single day. The question is what you do with it. Brandon Lee understood, lived it, showed it, until he couldn't anymore. And now the world understands too. Because of a conversation on a porch, a sunset in Hong Kong, a father and his son, 2 days before the end, the final lesson, the most important lesson, the lesson that echoes forever. Dad, are you afraid of anything? Yes. Failing the people I love. But you never fail us, Dad. I hope not, Brandon. I hope not. 2 days later, Bruce Lee closed his eyes for the last time. But the lesson stayed open, wide open, for everyone to learn from, for everyone to carry forward. The final lesson Bruce Lee ever taught. Not in a dojo, not in a film, on a porch, to his son, in the golden light of a setting sun. And it changed everything, forever.